Welcome, welcome. Hello. Thank you all that are here. Thank you so much for being here today on our DNH Live TV Live with our webcast. We're going to be having some fun talking to some amazing people today. If you don't know, my name is Bubba Gaddard. I'm the executive director for the Varsity Esports Foundation. I also get to run around and talk about esports all day and talk about some fun stuff. And we're going to talk about some amazing things today in higher education and esports. We look at looking ahead into 2023. We're going to talk about esports. We're going to talk about gaming. We're going to talk about the metaverse. That's right. What is the metaverse? We're going to explore that and understand what it is and ask questions. And if you're here, please some housekeeping. There are some Q&A sections on your page. So you probably see a page with my face on one side, and there's some menus and some links. You can actually ask questions, and I will see those questions popped up down here on my screen, and happy to answer those throughout the day. We're going to go for about an hour, and we're going to interview some people, and we're going to be able to hear and see. If you cannot hear me or see me, then go ahead and please refresh your screen. You should be able to hear me, and hello. But we're going to get started, and I just want to look and see who's in the chat here today. And hello, all the folks here today. I see Bradford Harris is in, and it's saying there's no audio, but that's okay. We'll get that fixed. We'll get that fixed for sure. I see Manuel Pardo, Felicia Collins. I see Jesus Martinez, Cameron Evans, Paul Duffy, hello. Roger, John, Jerome, and a lot of cool people in a lot of different organizations. Please refresh. If you are hearing me, go ahead and put in the Q&A. Hey, we hear you. If you don't, just keep saying, I can't hear you. Let's get some feedback. And hello, Jeff from Simi Valley, California. But really, we're talking about esports, gaming, and the metaverse. I'm going to bring in our first guest here shortly. Big shout out to DNH and to the sponsors as well: AOC, Intel, Lenovo, Logitech, MSI, NVIDIA, and Razer. Now, great. Thank you all. There are those. Those who couldn't hear me, hit the refresh button on your screen or your computer. Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Thank you everyone for responding. I appreciate you all. And we're going to get rolling. So our first guest, he's a little laggy on his side because the internet is a fun place, which we'll talk about what the internet is and also maybe what the metaverse is, I hope. But make sure you can hear everything and see everything, because we're going to jump in to our first guest, Casey from DNH, the Senior Sales Specialist. We're going to bring you up on stage. And how are you, sir? He's a little bit delayed, so I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to slowly fade up. There we go.
I'm doing well. I think the issues have been fixed, so hopefully I'm not too laggy. But yeah, I'm doing great. I'm the esports specialist here at DNH. So for those of you who don't know, most of what I do all day is work with customers to talk to schools, and help them find out what games they want to play, how to set up an esports team, what equipment they need, all that kind of stuff.
Love it, man. And how long have you been in this role here at DNH?
This role, it's only been a couple months, but I've been with DNH for 3 years and been working on esports opportunities the whole time I was here.
So you've been working. So you've been at DNH for a couple of years, and what was your role like before this?
Yeah, so I started off as as an inside sales rep for the small medium business team. And there it was just, any opportunities that my customers had within K-12, I would bring up esports. And every once in a while, I'd work on esports opportunities with them, but it wasn't all the time. Hey, Jeff, shout out to Jeff. He was one of my customers whenever I was an inside sales rep. And then I moved to the Razer specialist position after that. So worked hand in hand with Razer, putting Razer peripherals into esports opportunities before I became the esports specialist.
That's great. That's great. Now we're talking about gaming education. This is probably the 10th of one of these that we've done in the past 2 years around K-12, higher ed, esports. And I want to jump into maybe your perspective, since you bring something a little different, working these past few years, really working on those solutions. Can you talk a little bit about what solutions are really helpful for the average K-12 school or the collegiate school? Let's just stay with K-12. what's a good solution? What are some good solutions from tech when it comes to peripherals, and why are those important for a esports club and a K-12 school to get from these vendors or these resellers out here with DNH?
Right. So first thing, we'll talk monitors. Monitors, it's important for esports players to have quick response times. So 1 millisecond response times. And also the second most important thing is the frame rates. And it's, if they're lagging like I was earlier, it really messes them up with the game. A lot of the decisions that they make are split second, and they need to have that response time from their monitor so then they can clearly assess what's going on, and then their inputs aren't delayed. And that transitions right over into the peripherals. You need to make sure wired connection for peripherals. Bluetooth might be popular for some of the casual gamers, but for esports, wired's preferred. There's also something called the DPI for mice, and that's the
Hmm.
sensitivity of the mouse, basically. And that can be very important. Different gamers that even play in different genres might have wildly different sensitivity preferences for their mice.
So when we talk about what's important, not just for speed, if we look at a different part of the school, we need better cleats. We need a better gym floor. These are all things that a school, when you're talking to a school as a reseller or a vendor, it makes sense to kind of have these conversations in your back pocket. That, well, you would get better cleats and better pads for your football players. They have more protection, or um, bands, or whatever it takes, better equipment, better lifting. Those things are important to make your team successful. So this is what I'm hearing when it comes to gaming: for speed, for lag, latency, for clicking. Now, when we talk about the gamers, there's that side, but there's also another side when it comes to K-12, when it comes to more of production. And what are some good tools that we can give these resellers today to say, hey, here's why it's not just about the gamers, but it's about the production side? What are some good tools we can provide these resellers with?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So for the production side, like the computers, the systems themselves that they're putting in there for esports can be used for a multitude of things. And that's generally, how I think this solution should be pushed. Is it's not just for gaming, it's for STEM and STEAM, it's for creators, and that way you get the most people involved possible. Because many labs right now, they have the basic setup of 10 to 12 labs and they're just gaming. But reality, the bigger picture is you can set up a shoutcaster station, which that is like the color commentary and play-by-play of traditional sports. And all of a sudden, you get students involved who are into broadcasting and into communications. And then you eventually get like your Pro AV solution set up so that people can come to the live events and watch them. If you're broadcasting to twitch.tv, you then have people that can be community builders, community managers, and learn how to set up a good stream and do production that way.
Hmm. Now, I'm going to answer a question here, get some questions answered here. And while this is happening, Dave, do you mind popping in that first poll question as well for how comfortable you are? And yes, Jeff, your friend Casey, he wants to know what the metaverse is. We'll definitely get to that here. We're excited about it, and it's definitely more than Second Life 2.0. And great question from David: 144 hertz or 240 hertz for a monitor, and what's a good go-to for K-12, getting them, what's a good, better, best, maybe, when it comes to the hertz and the refresh rate for K-12 and gaming?
Yeah, so bigger's always going to be better in terms of the refresh rate. What I personally find is that at 144 frames per second versus 240 frames per second, you can't really tell the difference. Anything over 60 frames is, I'd say, good. So I would, even at an entry level, I'd try to go for 90. If you can't get that because of budget or whatever, 60 frames is okay. But I'd try to get at least 90. 144 is great, and then 240 is, obviously best. Or some go even higher than that. But
That's good. That's a good answer. So I think about D&H, and I think about this question, and those who may be answering uncomfortable, neutral, very uncomfortable. D&H has an esports pro AV sales engineer, correct, and to help design maybe some esports spaces. Does that help these resellers have a little better conversation about initiating?
Oh, absolutely. The reason why I'm here is because esports can be a complex solution that not a lot of people fully understand. So the important part is to just initiate that conversation, and then at DNH we have the resources to help you out. Once your customer says, "Yes, I am interested in esports. I want to talk about it." You bring me in, I can answer, anything the customer needs, and then even whenever it gets to the bigger esports arenas where we are talking broadcasting and pro AV, we have a sales engineer here that can help with those solutions. So
Mhm.
really, you don't have to be an expert in it to bring it up.
Well, it looks like we've got some folks who are comfortable with it who have probably taken the Esports Education Network certification course in the past few years here with D&H, the resellers course. If you haven't, that's still available through the end of the year on dnh.com/esports. You can go and check that out. It's the bottom of the page. Take that course. I think you get a discount still to the end of the year. And when I look at neutral, very uncomfortable, I mean, if you haven't had the opportunity to go back and watch some of these webcasts, there's literally been probably 10 or so about the K-12 and the collegiate space in gaming and esports. And I know some people here in the chat, Robert from CyberGator, all these folks here who have been to these events over the past few years. Yeah, definitely ask some questions. Go to dnh.com/esports. And I guess though, how we kind of finish this up is, let's talk a little bit about what you think 2023 is going to need, and what these resellers are going to need for gaming and esports in the K-12 and collegiate space. What do you think is going to be ahead of us for 2023, Casey?
I think that the streaming and broadcasting side of it is really the way to go. There are still going to be some schools out there that don't have any esports program at all, but many have at least have that basic setup at this point, and they're looking, hey, what's the next step? Like who can help me with this, because they still don't know. So
Hmm.
definitely the streaming and broadcasting, they're going to need webcams, they're going to need microphones, they're going to need depending on how far they go into it, video capture cards, um, key lights, even lights if they're broadcasting, the casters and everything. So
Hmm.
um, a lot of streaming equipment on top of your standard systems. In addition, a lot of schools are now going for customized equipment, right? So they might want chairs or desks in their school colors, or mouse pads or something that have their logo on them as well.
So yeah, I appreciate that, and we have another question here on the size of monitor, and I'll throw out to Rodney the definitely going to a lot of esports events and seeing 27 to 32-inch monitors is normal, but regardless of what size the monitor size is, a lot of gamers who especially play things like Valorant could be 6 inches from their monitor because they're watching their crosshair in the monitor just to see if someone pops around that corner. Um, what are your recommendations on an average screen size that we may want to give to a K-12 school?
Yeah, I would say anything between 24 and 27 inches is fine. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to preference for the gamer, themselves. But seven's definitely um, a good size, just because it's big
Mhm.
enough where they can see everything, but it's not too big where it's gonna cut out things on the side of their
Yeah.
peripheral vision. Because the important thing for them is they want to be able to see the whole screen at once
Mhm.
and be able to assess all that information easily.
That's great. Well, last question here. Darren's asking a really good question. And hey, if you're here, you're in the right spot, Darren, because you can go to dnh.com/esports. You can reach out to Casey. He is the senior sales specialist for esports at DNH. You can go to that website, take a certification, watch these old videos that we've put up here on webcast, and then you get a lot of questions answered. That's what's been really good I've seen about DNH, being able to put a lot of resources out there for you as resellers and vendors to give them the opportunity to understand what the K-12 space or the collegiate space is for esports, scholastic esports. It's huge, it's growing, and that's why I think DNH is doing a great job. As an outside expert, I think they're doing a great job. And one more question: curved monitors or not curved? What's your take on those? I'd love one, but I also have 4 flat monitors. Well, curved monitor here, but any take on curved versus non-curved monitors, Casey?
Oh, for my own gaming experience, I love curved for the single player games. For esports in particular, though, the flat monitors I think are better, just because the curved ones. Typically, the reason is you want to be like more immersed in the game. It's a better kind of field of view. But the flat monitors, again, it's for kind of visual clarity. You can see everything easily on one screen, and that's important for esports.
Well, this has been Casey Weiss with DNH, a senior sales specialist. Please reach out to him. Go to dnh.com/esports. Casey, thank you so much for coming and speaking today. And we're going to jump into some more stuff here. But thank you so much, Casey. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bubba.
Boom, got it. The lag is real. That's great. Well, thanks, Casey. And we're going to jump in here in just a moment with our next guest from Coalition of Parents Esports, Shay. But I really just want a big shout out to all the folks here in the chat. There's almost 80 folks here today. Lori, hello. I saw Bradford Harris, and I also saw some other folks. Let me find this list here. I love that you guys are here watching. Karen from Bridging the Gap in Esports. Thank you so much for being here. We know you love doing what is amazing stuff with esports. Chris Bukowski, which we're going to talk about you here in a moment. I'm sure you'll hear your name a few times. But thank you guys all for being here. Susie Smith at Two Trees in Wichita, thank you for being here. A lot of these folks have been here watching over the past 2 years and learning about esports in the scholastic space. But what I've loved is, like I said, DNH has done a really good job at educating and preparing the sellers, resellers, and vendors for access to learning how to have those conversations. So thank you so much, DNH, for doing that. We're going to move into our next section. We're going to start covering Metaverse. We're going to talk about Web 3.0, could be Web 5.0 in the future. It could be soon. And we're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. But I'm going to bring in a very, very special guest who I get to talk to quite often. And her name is Shay. She is from Coalition of Parents in Esports. Thank you so much for being here, Shay.
Thanks for having me.
Now, in your expert opinion, what is the coolest video game right now? Because you have a teenager, you should know this.
The coolest? Well, it's really just whatever he's playing at that moment. So at the moment, it's Valorant.
Yes, Valorant is taking the world by storm more and more. I played in a Valorant tournament for DNH this last year, and I was terrible, but it was only my second time playing. But we won't talk about that anymore. But Shay, let's jump in a little bit about you so people get familiar with you and know a little bit more about you. We're 20 minutes in here. We've got some time left. We're going to talk about some fun stuff, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and the organization you started. Actually, I'd love for people to know that don't know. These 80 folks are in the chat. Some of them may know you real well, but can you tell us more about your journey with Coalition of Parents in Esports, COPE, and maybe some history with IBM and what you're looking forward to here this year?
Yeah, so a lot of people wonder how I got here. I'm very active with the gamers on Twitter and Twitch. And actually, I got here because I was a gamer myself, and I was a computer science major, and I now credit gaming with why I pursued my computer science degree. But because my kids grew up in a technical household, gaming was just natural. We were playing Minecraft and Roblox with our kids from a young age. But it was my son who found competitive and introduced me to the whole world of competitive gaming. And that was completely new to me. He was 13, 14 years old when he started playing Fortnite, of course. And it opened up a whole new world for me. At first, I really wasn't paying that much attention to what he was doing, like most parents. But then I started watching as he started streaming on Twitch and doing other stuff. And I was kind of blown away by what my teenage son was doing.
So you were seeing this, and then you're very active on Twitter. Actually, I want to jump in that story. You've been helping gamers with their Twitter accounts. Isn't there a fun story with Tfue. Tfue, if you guys don't know, he's a very famous Fortnite player, and the Fortnite default skin looks like him. What was your story with Tfue?
So when we first started Cope, I mean, we were parents who understood gaming. We got it because our kids were playing and we were seeing the great things they were doing, but we were also seeing so many other gamers that didn't necessarily have the support at home that we felt they needed. So we really created the organization to educate parents and to help parents get involved with their kids. But it was all really about helping the gamers. And we thought it was really important as a nonprofit to not be seen as a nanny organization to these kids. We wanted them to respect us. So the first thing we did was said, how can we help you? When we launched, what can we do for you? And the number one thing that kids had a challenge with out here was advocating for themselves, something that we teach our kids all the time. And it was more about just stepping in and helping them with issues. And a lot of these issues were with the platforms, whether it be Epic or Riot or Twitch or Twitter. How do they get what they need? How do they get their account back if something's taken? Well, one of the things that surprised me is a lot of the biggest gamers and streamers didn't have their actual act on different platforms. Mm-hmm. So one day I just reached out to Tfue and said, hey, why are you Tfue? Don't you want Tfue? And he's like, yeah, I've been trying to get it for like 5 years. Nobody will give it to me. And just with making a few phone calls, you know, as an adult business person would do, we had it in 24 hours. You know, wow. So those are some of the things that we do, but we don't just do it for Tfue. We do it, we help all kids. I don't care if you have 2 followers or whatever, because one of the things that was also important for me to show kids at Cope was that we wanted to help them. We were here to support them, so whatever they needed.
Now, where can people, before we jump into a lot of stuff, I really want people to know more about your organization and where they could go and support you. What is your website and what is your mission?
So Cope, you can find us at cope.gg. You can also find us at CopeGG on Twitter, which is usually where we're most active. And where our mission is really that it's to help the gamers, and it's to get more parents involved, and it's to get programs into schools. I mean, we want to see this. So we were started by parents from the pro gaming scene, mainly in Fortnite to begin, but it has expanded out to pretty much every game you can think of, whether it's competitive or not. And we are parents who created a nonprofit organization to help other parents. So we see ourselves as a hub. We're not actually selling anything. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to connect parents to the resources they need. And a lot of times that's education as well. We'll have teachers reaching out to us and schools. I've had 2 universities contact me this week actually asking, who do I call? How do I start my own program? So it's great that we've just become this resource hub where we can point people to what they need.
Love it. Love it. Okay. I think we need to throw up the poll question before we jump into what the metaverse is and Web3, because I'd love to get a heartbeat and a kind of temperature of what the metaverse is. What is the metaverse? You have some options: virtual reality, social media, Mark Zuckerberg's tech. Notice I didn't say his tech because I don't know if they're a sponsor, and crypto, or all the above. And if you don't know what Mark Zuckerberg's tech is, it's the one where he looks really creepy in virtuality. Just kidding. Wait, let me just make sure they're not a sponsor. Okay, I think we're good. I don't know. And the metaverse, I'd love to get these answers here. We're going to give probably another minute. Please chime in on what you think the metaverse is, or maybe you have another answer that's not there, and hopefully we'll answer those questions for you. Earlier today, I actually did a show on the metaverse, kind of promoting this actual show. And I want to recommend a book for you guys. If you have a moment to, go to cope.gg on your internet browser. It's cope.gg, and there's a donate button there. I would definitely suggest clicking that button and getting out your credit card and your PayPal and all that stuff to support this mission that Shay and Chris have started, and supporting what they do in their mission, getting stuff in schools. And you should definitely partner with them as well, because if you're trying to help get stuff into schools and helping schools with esports programs and helping schools with equipment and everything they need, no better than a parent who has seen it happen or sees it happen daily than Shay to help you out with that. The one thing I will recommend before we get into this other website you need to check out, besides dnh.com/esports, is the book by Matthew Ball called The Metaverse and Everything We Know About It. Sorry, The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize the World. That is revolutionize everything. Okay, I'm going to get it right. It's on Amazon if you'd like to check it out. I have it on Scribd, which is a really good platform. The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize Everything. I thought I was going to get a definition of what the Metaverse was. I went and I was like, I need to know what the Metaverse is. What the heck is it? And besides that, I got information of what the Metaverse isn't, how did we get here, and when will it be the Metaverse, and if it's really here. So definitely check out that book, Matthew Ball. I'll probably be interviewing him next year on one of my shows. But Shay, throw me an idea of what you think the Metaverse is before we put these poll questions out.
Well, I think it goes to what I think is so cool about gaming. And a lot of people have asked me why COPE has actually extended what we do into Web3 and the Metaverse. And that's because, to me, it's all about inspiring kids. It's about inspiring them with what they can do with their education and with their career. And the thing that I have found amazing about the community here that these kids have created across social media is just that they've created their entire ecosystem around these games. They have found their people. They have created an economy. They've created friend groups. And all of this socialization and networking is teaching them valuable business skills in a evolving metaverse. So to me, that's what's amazing about it, is it's teaching, connection to these kids. And it's a new way of doing business, a new way of socializing everything. And a lot of these gamers are on the cutting edge of this, and they are the ones that have the skills as we move forward into these spaces. So that's what's amazing to me about it, is it's a whole new frontier of jobs that also translates worldwide. You can be any place.
We've gotten quite a few times in the chat about, thank you, Shay, by the way, about Second Life. And I just want to throw out a quote here and give you some little history about Second Life and what it was. What it kind of is still, not really anymore, but in 2003, Second Life was launched, and corporations like Adidas, BBC, Wells Fargo, American Cancer Society, Save the Children, Harvard had shops and locations, and the stock exchange was a part of Second Life. And 2 years later, after it launched, the GDP of Second Life was actually $30 million. I don't think people knew that. And by 2009, it was $500 million. So if you think about Second Life, if you watch The Office and you ever watch Dwight Schrute play in Second Life, but he was just really living his life as a paper salesman in Second Life. I know that's a deep cut quote if you can go back and watch The Office. But there was a lot of money put into it. And right now, what we're seeing is something like this in Roblox. If you know what Roblox is, please go check out Roblox. Things like Nike Land and Minecraft are doing some amazing things when it comes to what we may consider Second Life nowadays. But I want to see what the polling questions are. So if you want to pump those out for us, Dave, and I'm going to actually then read off a really good definition of what the metaverse is. Okay. All right. Great. So what I expected, virtual reality at 51%, social media. So if you had one to choose, I bet somebody I know pick Mark Zuckerberg's tech, crypto, or all the above. Well, I would honestly say none of those are right, because it's much more than that. It's even much more than that. I'm going to read a super uber nerdy quote that we don't have up on the screen, but I'm going to read it to you in my best, not James Earl Jones voice. And we will give a definition that I've gotten. Okay. The metaverse is a massively scaled and interoperable network of real-time rendered 3D worlds that can be experienced synchronously and persistently by an effectively unlimited number of users with an individual sense of presence, and with the continuity of data such as identity, history, entitlements, objects, communications, and payments. Now, what the heck did I just say? I don't know. I don't know what I just said. But Shay, how do you see COPE, or how do you see Twitter, or how do you see virtuality? How do you see that in the metaverse? What does that mean to the metaverse to you?
To me, it's all about connecting to people. So these are all just ways to connect. And so that's my key point of all of this.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'm gonna give another example that I heard, that the metaverse. This is gonna blow people's minds, because a lot of people do think that the metaverse is virtual reality, is virtual reality goggles, is Ready Player One, the book or the movie. There's a second book which is really good too. The idea of metaverse isn't just going in Decentraland or using crypto or doing a meeting, but it's also Zoom. It's also Twitter. It's what we're doing right now. You are in the metaverse right now watching this. So Shay and I may not have avatars, but this isn't a virtual reality 3D world that we're trying to do. This is just 2D. So I'll throw out the idea of something like, let's just say one of our sponsors. Okay, let's just say Lenovo. Lenovo in the metaverse. If you look at the universe as the metaverse and a galaxy as tech companies, you can then say a planet or a solar system may be Lenovo. So if you think of it that way, now the other solar systems or planets in a galaxy, because galaxies are made up of a lot of solar systems. This is so Star Trek. I love Star Trek. This is so exciting for me. Logitech, MSI, Nvidia, Razer, AOC, and Intel, those are all different solar systems within that galaxy, which the metaverse is. Another galaxy may be social media. Could be Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all those other things. So if you look at it that way, and you know that everything is in the metaverse, that makes it a little more digestible. So that's my opinions and my thoughts and my research. But Shay, you're a Web3 expert, and I'd love to hear your take on Web3 and tell us what it is.
So to me, we got here in Web3 in a big way last year when NFTs took off. And a lot of the gamers jumped into this space because, you know, it was an adjacent space for influencers online, and we were already really intrigued. I think one of the things that kind of blew me away was the art. As somebody who was in the gaming space, I loved that all the technical kids here who were really good at the video games were were being applauded. But we also had all these kids in the background who were the early developers and who were the artists creating the overlays and everything. And finally, I saw NFTs, and what was happening here was a chance for these kids to shine, some of these artistic things. So that was just like really exciting and fun. But then as I started looking into it and understanding what an NFT could actually really be in the real world, besides a cute animal that you're selling, but it could actually be your digital identity. What we have seen as Web3 has completely evolved. Before it was just that, it was crypto, it was NFT, it was DeFi. But now I'm looking at it in so many different ways about how it can change the way we buy houses, we buy cars, we maintain our medical records, and how we play video games.
I love that we're already getting questions like, what are NFTs, which is a great segue for what is Web 1.1 or 1.0 and what's Web 2.0. I'll throw out my thought, and maybe you can help me out. I see Web 1.0 as Netscape and the internet on Internet Explorer and digital phone calls or whatever. And Web 2.0 is kind of where we have been living, with the ability to have social media has really the rise of Web 2.0. Web 3.0, to your point, is more of that blockchain, that NFT, the opportunity to do things in this virtual world in more extent than just talk to people. And I'll throw out what an NFT is. An NFT is a non-fungible token. The best example I can give for you is when you go to a gala for a nonprofit, and there's a bunch of sports memorabilia items on the silent auction table, and one signed by Michael Jordan, a basketball of Michael Jordan or whatever it may be, that's sports memorabilia. An easy kind of crossover to just take your first step into what an NFT is in the crypto space is that it's kind of like a memorabilia, where that Jordan memorabilia basketball is number 1 of 15, right? And it's for sale, and somebody buys it, and they may store it, and they may hold it, they may love it forever, but they also may resell it or something someday. So if you think of that sense of a piece of art like the famous monkeys that are on the, I don't know what is the name of those crypto ones that is the monkey.
Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Okay, thank you. That one. And those are traded and they're bought at high prices and they're kept, but their value goes up or down depending on the market, which is not great right now for crypto. But they have value, and there's identifying numbers in the blockchain that signify who made it, who buys it, who resells it, and all this other stuff. So it's kind of like how memorabilia passed along. So that's my best short answer for NFT. Do you have any other input on that, Shay? Because you're more of an expert on this than I would say.
No, I think that's a great thing. I mean, and it's so funny for the developers in the audience because, of course, blockchain's been around for a while, but the way it's being used now is quite different. And that's how we've thought of an NFT so far in this, exciting past year, where people started paying attention to it and thinking, hey, wait, maybe this is something, and how it, connected to art. But now I almost see this bear market of crypto and NFTs as good, because it's making people take a step back and look at, okay, what can we really do with this? How can we really use it for, good? And how can we actually create NFTs that do something? And
how could cool nonprofits in the gaming space use NFTs? Wink, wink, you and I, to do some fun stuff. Bradford, yes. Web 1.0, yes, I agree. The kind of read-only web, I mean, that we had literally 1990s Netscape, even bulletin boards back in the day on dial-up. That's Web 1.0. Bored Ape, thank you, Dave, for that. It's Bored Ape is the name of those ones I was specifically thinking of, those monkey NFTs. Okay, yes, buzzwords. I like the question. Metaverse, a new buzzword. That's a definite common thing you keep hearing. I think, how do you see maybe virtual reality, augmented reality shaping the future of entertainment, gaming? We obviously seen Pokemon Go and other things on your phone for augmented reality. Augmented reality, the best example I can give is Pokemon Go, or you looking around your house with Amazon and putting a chair somewhere on your phone. That's augmented reality for everybody out there. Just so I can answer that question ahead of time. How do you see virtual and augmented reality, helping shape the future?
Well, I mean, I think I saw VR at first as just somewhat gimmicky. And my son did have, one of the first VRs in his room, and it was kind of fun just to kind of play around with, but we didn't really think that much about it. It was just kind of this family game that we would do every once in a while. But watching my teenage son, I was telling Bubba before we started, most of his best friends that he has right now online are kids that he met in VR chat. So this is something that's becoming real to them. And this is something where they really are connecting. So I see, much more real utility for this as well, besides just playing a video game and socialization. You see how it's being used with, I'll call out Chris, my partner in Cope. Prior to running Cope, he actually worked with adults with autism. And they were already using VR technology with the adults in their houses to help them deal with things that worried them. And they could actually, have that desensitization on, using virtual reality. Or something that was even more cool to me was using it to travel and experience. So using, VR travel logs, because these are people that are never going to visit Rome and are never actually going to see the Colosseum up close, but they could actually experience it in that way. So it's very Star Trek-y, but it's pretty awesome.
Star Trek, let's go. Definitely agree. And I'll talk a little Jeff's point. The NFT, the benefit there with NFT is what's called royalties. You can put 10% royalties on an NFT, and every time it resells, you get 10% of that sell, no matter what the price is. So there is some benefit there. I know it's a lot to digest, everyone, but really to kind of bring back why we're even here today is looking ahead to 2023. And the reason we're talking about Web 3.0 or Web 3, and we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about the metaverse, is because these are the conversations you're going to be having when you're going into schools. or you should be having, and that you'll be more prepared for, we hope, after watching something like this and taking a little time to go through different videos and things like artificial intelligence that's happening really, really big this last month with if you're on social media and you're making your own artificial intelligent photo painting of yourself, which a lot of people have been doing on their social media, as well as using what I think Shay and I have helped blow this up a little too much on the internet, is the Chat GPT, artificial intelligence. We've thrown out a lot of acronyms today, by the way, and hopefully we're answering these questions. If you have these questions about what they are, we'll help answer them. But really looking forward to 2023, when we're talking about scholastic esports, Shay, which we're both heavily into, the metaverse, Web3, virtual reality, augmented reality, all this stuff we're talking about. What can the people here on the show do to be more prepared about 2023, knowing that there is maybe an issue with recession coming, we don't know, but the ability to also support these schools with equipment, with education, with literacy, with support from a parent. In 2023, how can we help these resellers have a better understanding of what they need to know to support administrators and teachers?
Yeah, and to me, it's all about the parents. I mean, parents want the best for their kids. You know, that's the bottom line for them. And all of this technology scares them. It's terrifying, letting your kid go in these virtual worlds, having them be on Twitter and playing games that you didn't play, that you don't understand. It's absolutely terrifying. So, but I don't want to see our kids limited in learning what they can from it. To me, it's advocating for the parents to get involved. And the best way to get parents involved is to show them the value. And that's what we really need to do. So as you're going into these schools, you know, you can bring Cope along. We have programs for that. But what I really want to see is getting the parents involved to advocate, because the biggest challenge a lot of these teachers and coaches have that want to create scholastic programs is they're getting pushback from somebody. And oftentimes that's an administrator or that's vocal parents. So if we can go in there and show them the other side and show them what the value is, then that's who we've got to sell. It's not just the kids. The kids are excited about this. The kids see the value of some of this, but we've really got to show their parents the value.
So this then makes me think these resellers need to also be educating these administrators and educating these IT professionals that they go and see every day at different schools and different school districts on how they can engage their parents at the schools. And maybe it takes you as a reseller saying, hey, we'll have a sit down or webinar with parents who want to learn more about gaming and the gaming and esports in the scholastic space. And there's good experts like me and Shay who would love to take those opportunities. We're expensive, so just know that it takes a lot of money to get us places, but that's okay. It's totally worth it. We'll come in. I might do it for food, but I really want to kind of wrap up our last 15 minutes here, thinking about how the metaverse, how Web3, how virtual reality, augmented reality is going to be shaping more of society and ethics. And gosh, my wife actually asked me yesterday, okay, so using Chat GPT to write something is helpful, and it's, you know, copyright is not an issue, but ethically, how was it? I mean, if we're talking about all these things, what do we need to be on the lookout for ethically when it comes to all the stuff we've been talking about today? What do you think, Shay?
Well, I'm one of those that's very forward thinking when it comes to technology. And at one time, people thought calculators were a cheat. And, you know, you think back to that. And yes, it's going to keep evolving. We thought that kids weren't going to learn as much because they didn't have to do a lot of stuff on their own anymore. But instead, what's happened is they've just learned more of different things because they can actually use a calculator for quick searches. They can use Google to look stuff up. That is going to continue to expand. That doesn't mean that we're dumbing down our children. It just means that they can learn different things and they can learn in different ways because they can rely on these technologies. That's my take. I know it's not popular with some people, but that's my view.
Man, I like that. And whew, yeah, there's a lot of you're exactly right on computers or control let's see, calculators, sorry, were dangerous, right? And there's a lot of common objections in gaming that we see as well in the scholastic space that we kind of go over in our training, and you've talked about a lot, especially with first person shooter games and the questions for schools. Like, we don't want to have that. But I look back at Stranger Things, that just this last season of Stranger Things, and the in the 80s, the Dungeons and Dragons phase of how bad that was. And we can just literally put it with everything, the Beatles in the 50s or whatever, how bad that was. And now, of course, it's not that feeling. So forward thinking, would you consider yourself a futurist?
I never really thought about it until we did COPE, but yes, I definitely would consider myself a futurist.
That's right, Rodney. A $700 calculator back in the 70s. Yes.
Yes.
They're still expensive, man. They're still expensive. They're not $700, but they are pretty expensive. You're down in Texas, though. Is that how is forward thinking in Texas when it comes to gaming, esports, metaverse, Web3?
So I am in Austin, Texas, and I'm actually really amazed by what I'm seeing happening in the schools around here. And it's not even in the cities. It's a lot of times in the small towns and in the K through 12, because they are looking at ways to keep these kids in school after school and keeping them engaged. And it just amazes me how many small towns are the first ones to be incorporating these programs. And then if we also look at the future, one of the things that I really want to see happen here, and I want to work with some more schools, is using their scholastic programs more as a recruiting tool. Right now, we have the esports organizations recruiting, whether you're talking about collegiate or you're talking about, K-12 high schools, private schools. It should be happening at admissions, and it's not. The admissions people do not understand how valuable this is to kids. And it doesn't even have to be about competitive gaming. Just knowing that there are groups of people that they can join, there are friend groups for different games, or they can actually help with production, or all these things are really valuable to kids right now. And actually that extends into the workplace. I think that we're going to see more, IBM and the big corporations starting to advertise what they're doing as far as corporate gaming, because a lot of kids coming out of school right now, that's actually a plus. If they're trying to decide between going to work for IBM or Dell, one of the things they're looking at is what is the corporate esports culture.
A lot of preparation, college and career readiness. I agree with that 100%. And how do we even look at this differently? Of just an example of the AI of maybe not teaching, maybe not in education, and there's going to be a lot of backlash to this. I'm going to say it. Not teaching kids, or not saying you can't use AI to write your paper, but maybe is there more a need of how to educate students through STEM, through maybe their love of gaming, to get them in the classroom or in the after school program, to how to make a better AI, right? Or make an AI that helps you not plagiarize or something like that. And I look at the people in the chat here, Shay, like Bradford Harris, a former educator, Karen Kiona Smith, really big into helping students access. And I look at the education space for like what are we needing to do in 2023? And I'd love anybody, if Bradford's in the chat, to give any opinions on what you just did. Hello, I didn't know you were in Houston as well. I didn't know that. Yeah, should connect. Okay, Bradford's in Houston. That's great. That's good. We'll talk more. But the idea of the classroom and the education, we talk about the chocolate on the broccoli. This is what gets kids in the door. What college and career opportunities are there out there for these kids beyond? What can we help these administrators know as a reseller going in those doors and saying, this is good for your kid because they're going to be future consumers, future employees of these tech companies. How can we prepare them? What are some tips you would give to someone going into an administrator?
Well, I think a lot of them, it's just showing them that this is something that's going to valuably grow the programs. And I think the thing that's cool to me about esports is it crosses over so many different programs. There's, you've got kids in communications that are needed. You've got,
Mhm.
there's just so many different areas that can be affected. So I think that's one of the things that's really important in the administration is to show them that.
Mhm. Yeah.
What about
100%.
you? What are your thoughts there? I know you live and breathe this.
Well, this today, what I've been able to kind of compare sports and compare other things, which we look at, Shay, like sports is a good barometer to explain things, or a good way to test things and explain things, but it's different. And should we have called it esports 20 years ago? Maybe we should have called it competitive gaming instead of something with sports and people don't get it. The time I spend just convincing is is fun, but it also, when people start getting convinced, it's a 180 and they understand it a lot more. So I think the administrators, you as a reseller, you can go to dnh.com/esports. There's resources, there's certifications for you. As we wrap up today, I definitely want to make sure you go there. Also, again, go to cope.gg and hit the donate button and support Cope and their mission. Um, Gosh, I think even to what we're here in the chat with lingo is definitely a good thing, because you need to have that lingo, that language when we talk about metaverse or Web3 or everything else. And I did kind of want to answer this question for Rodney, which I've been seeing. If you're working with schools and they have Chromebooks, and that's a really big thing right now, is a lot of schools getting Chromebooks or tablets. There's some really hot tech that's out there and coming out about not even remote desktoping Windows, but more of programs inside your Chrome desktop, which are good for maybe teachers. They need these kind of window based um, management software programs because they can't use it on Chromebook sometimes. But there's even games like a Minecraft. It's hard to play on a Chromebook, but if you have these other little platforms that get you into a Windows based remote desktop, those are important. Which goes into, can kids play these games on Chromebooks and then have an esports club? Yes, but it takes a little workaround, and it maybe need a little more power for those Chromebooks. Shay, we're wrapping up. Give me your last thoughts about anything and everything. Could be your love for kids, could be about something we haven't talked about today. And I know we talk about a lot of stuff, Web3 for sure, crypto, virtuality, metaverse. What's your last take today that you want to talk about?
Well, I'm going to get back. I'm going to stick with Scholastic because to
Mhm.
me, it's all about getting more programs into the schools. That's where it's really going to start, and getting those parents involved. Because my son was super active here, and I had to make the decision to pull him out of school and homeschooling, something I never wanted to do. We did a great job with it, but I wish he had been in the classroom. This was a kid that thrived in the classroom. If he had had that program in his school, he definitely would not have gone the homeschool route. So I want to see more programs. I want to see more kids to
Mhm.
have access to this, and and to have their parents support. And that's the other thing. There was an incredible thread that went out on Twitter today from the founder of Netflix, that if you go to me, Shaymon, on Twitter, you'll see, because I retweeted it. And he was just talking about what he's doing. He's an angel fund investor now. And
Mm.
he no longer is choosing things that he thinks are going to be successful, because he says, I really have no idea. What he's choosing is people he believes in. And it started for him with his mom, who believed in him. And that, to me, is what all of this is about. This is something new. Parents don't understand it. But the kids who are here, they still need that support. They need that support from teachers and from parents. And so anything we can do to help parents understand why that support is so important is great.
Love it. Well, I'm on your website. I see I can donate with cryptocurrency.
You
That's
can.
great. I donate through the Giving Block, which is a really cool platform. I can donate through PayPal as well. Donation sent. Hey, if I can't talk about it unless I do it. So you guys go out there, make sure you go to cope.gg and donate to this amazing mission that helps support gamers, helps support parents, schools. Shay, you're amazing. Why is that? Just messing with you. Thank you for being amazing, and I really do appreciate you. I'm going to wrap up the show, and I'll chat with you on Discord sometime in the future here, probably later today.
Sounds great. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, Jay.
Reach out to me.